You're welcome back to The Pulse. Now, in the past 2 weeks, we've kept the focus of our land conversation on the land bill, which is before Parliament. Our experts from the Land Commission and COLANDEF have helped us understand what is in it and, of course, how we will be affected when it is passed the way it is. Now, today, let's look at another aspect of this conversation: gender issues in land administration here in Ghana. We're joined in the studio by George Kwesi Essel. He's a land administration officer and a valuer at Lands Commission. And also here is our regular land expert, Nana Amayira. She is executive director for COLANDEF. It's an NGO focusing on improving land tenure security to help Ghanaians escape poverty. Now, this is how you can join our conversation. You can do it via WhatsApp. The number is 054-010-9009. Okay, 054-010-9009. Let's now start the conversation. Send through your questions. But it's good to see you both. Before we start, though, let's do a bit of a wrap, if you like, on last week's conversation on the land bill, which is currently before Parliament, and of course the implications of the bill on individual land rights. So can we do a quick wrap up before we get into it?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think over the past 2 weeks we have tried to explain the different aspects of the land bill. And we have also concluded on the critical point that even though about 80% of our lands are in the hands of customary land authorities, we have a bill currently being discussed which has a limited focus on the dimensions of land administration which involves the customary land authorities. So I mentioned last week that one critical aspect of the land bill, which we had hoped that it would be highlighted and kept in the bill, is the establishment of customary land secretariats in every traditional area in Ghana. That if we had this secretariat established and actually legalized, it is going to help to ensure that at each traditional area, land acquisition processes, land documentation, and keeping records of all land transactions will be done in a way that is in line with the law, and that is going to elicit that sense of security that we needed for all our transactions. That is something significant. If it was done, it was going to impact on individual people who acquire land for various uses. Unfortunately, it's not going to receive that attention, and for us at COLANDEF, it's really an unfortunate situation which requires serious attention. Otherwise, we will have the bill passed into an act, and we will still have the problems, the challenges, the litigation, the multiple sales that we are having currently in Ghana, in our land sector.
Right, fascinating stuff there. And of course, that means we can now lead into today's conversation. And today we're looking at gender. All right, now as a valuer, as a person who works for the Commission, tell me, in what ways does one gender find themselves at a disadvantage over the other when it comes to seeking or protecting their individual land rights?
Thank you very much. When we talk about gender, I don't think in the land industry we are being discriminating against one another. As it is now, when it comes to my office, PVLMD of Lands Commission, the regional head, she is a lady. And then followed by the regional head, we have another senior officer within the PVLMD Lands Commission who is also a lady. And if you go to Land Valuation Division of the Lands Commission, the regional head is a lady. If you go to Land Registration Division, the registrar, she is a lady. We have other senior officers who are also men within the commission. So I feel now Lands Commission is doing well by balancing the equation. We have women who are holding very sensitive position in this country, especially when it comes to land administration. Okay. So I think for now, Lands Commission is doing well when it comes to gender in terms of land administration.
Well, let's find out if this representation in management reflects in a representation for customers.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree that to a large extent, we have had a lot of awareness on the need to mainstream gender in our land administration. But if you talk about issues of access, control, benefits, and participation in decision making in the land administration setup, I think we still have a long way to go. And when we talk about gender, it is not about male, female per se, that we have a female in a position like this and therefore we don't have a gender issue. It's far from that. Let me give you an example. So you have a situation where in many rural areas, you have a farmer, a man, who travels. I usually use my area as an example, Ekuapem. We travel a lot to many parts of the country, Western region, for example. So the man will usually take the lead, go and seek permission to occupy a particular land and farm. And usually what they do is that when they go at first, they prepare the grounds. When they acquire the land and the grounds have been prepared and it is time to plant the seeds, say cocoa, then the man will send for his wife and children to come so that they will work on the farm, plant the crops, nurture the crops, harvest, and that becomes their livelihood year in, year out for a long time. For many of the women and children, this will be their job for the rest of their lives. However, even though the woman will be working with the man on the farm for the rest of her life, when we are talking about ownership of that parcel of land or that farm, who is it for? Usually in our tradition, it is for the man, even though the woman has become part of the whole equation. It becomes difficult. So apart from the recognition that is given because the man is the one who went ahead for the farm, when you talk about control, access to the resources, control over that resource is the man. So the woman doesn't have the space to actually have that control over the farming activity except to follow the man in doing it. That is a gender issue. In Ghana, currently, we have situations where a man and a woman will construct a building, use their own resources to construct a building. Kojo, you are Ghanaian. Usually when you drive by places and you see buildings, and you see families occupying the buildings, what is your perception? It is the man's house. But in many cases, it is the woman who may have done it and occupying with the man, or may have contributed in working with the man. So we are saying that when it comes to recognition, it's a significant aspect of ownership. I am recognized to be the owner of this property. But in many cases, the woman doesn't have that recognition. If you talk about benefit sharing, currently we have a constitutional arrangement where resources from the land, royalties, are shared with, the traditional authorities in the land areas have some parts to benefit. So there is 55% going to the district assembly, 20% to the traditional council, and 25% to the paramount or the head of the stool. You know, we have traditional leaders being chiefs and queen mothers. So in that constitutional provision, where are the queen mothers placed? That is a gender issue. So we are saying that, yes, we have gone a long way in trying to understand that land is not necessarily a male property. It's a societal property for both men and women.
Okay.
And therefore, access, control over decision-making, control over benefits, and all the participation in decision-making should include not just male members of the society, but also female members of the society.
So tell me, whose job is it to make sure that this balance is achieved? Is it the Lands Commission's role to make sure that when a man acquires a farm, he cedes some of the control to the woman who is going to spend her life working on it?
So all of us have a role to play. You know, when you are talking about the dynamics in gender, it has the household level dynamics, it has the organizational level dynamics, community level dynamics, and of course, the national level dynamics. One of the things that the Lands Commission could do, and that is something we have been working with them over the years, and I must say that we have gotten to a point where they have appreciated that previously, if a man would bring a document for registration, and it is just Mr. and Mrs. Youngson, for example. Anybody can be Mrs. Youngson today, and another day another person be Mrs. Youngson. So instead of just
Amen,
leaving
amen.
leaving it in that sense of Mr. and Mrs. Yankson, we want to be very specific and say this is property belonging to Mr. Kwejo Yankson and Mrs. Amma Yankson, as an example, so that it is clear who Mrs. Yankson is, so that it gives protection. So to a large extent, we have a situation where the Lands Commission has improved significantly in recognizing that in documenting ownership of land, they recognize that if indeed the property is acquired jointly by the parties, both parties are duly recognized and are involved in the documentation. But beyond that, we also have the household dynamics that I think at the household level, both husbands and wife would want to recognize each other's role in contributing to the landed resources that they bring about, so that it doesn't become a problem. And at the traditional level, many traditional areas have moved away from the situation where they say, oh, the women are not part of the decision making. We have gotten some improvement there, but I think we still have a situation where traditional councils are mainly made of the male members of the traditional leadership, regional houses of chiefs, national house of chiefs, and so on. So we have made some progress, but we still have a lot of work to do at all levels.
So George, I guess it's clear that it's not just about which people are employed by the Lands Commission, but how the gender issues that affect ownership of land can also be dealt with. So what is the current plan of the Lands Commission to help enhance this?
Yeah, as said by Lands Commission, we've gone a long way to improve this gender issue. As, for instance, Mr. Isol and Mrs. Isol. We would want you to disclose the full name, Mrs. What Isol. So that would, but you see, when it comes to gender issue, Lands Commission, we have a role to play, but not all that much. We are looking at where we have received a document for registration. Okay, if A comes to Lands Commission and we know that A actually purchased the property from the recognized allodia owner, the Lands Commission don't have even the capacity to tell him that go and add another person's name to the document before would start your registration or something of that sort. So when it comes to gender, Lands Commission, we can play a role, I said, but not all that much. We are basically at the receiving point. If we know that the document is coming from the right source and the document is bearing the name Amma, we would do the registration. If it's Kwesi, we will do the registration. If it's Kwesi and Amma, we still have to go ahead and then do the registration.
Okay.
But as I explained earlier on, when it comes to gender, in terms of the land administration itself, leaders, they are very critical.
That's a point
leaders
you have made. We appreciate that point. We want to look at the way forward. And there have been some suggestions made by Amma. Just let me stay with you for a moment. There have been some suggestions made by Amma. First of all, she's commended you for doing well with the issue of the correct names of spouses. But clearly that's not where it ends. So what else is in the plan of the Commission? What else have you planned to do that will further the gender issue when it comes to land ownership?
Yeah, I would always try to encourage individuals, especially when they are couples. All of them, whether the property was acquired jointly or individual, they should try and then put up their name together when it comes to registration. Because in the olden days, you are always looking at the situation whereby the property is registered in the name of the man. Upon the demise of the man, that is when they will come to Lands Commission for vesting assets. So we've also tried as much as possible to encourage individuals who are couples to add both names when it comes to registration, so that we would always not have to rely on vesting assets and all that.
All right. Let me read a few of the messages we've received from viewers. Perhaps you can help them with some of their issues. So this one comes from Richard, who is writing from the Bono region. Richard says, I agree 100% with the lady. You mean Amma. What's the extent of passing a law which would only perpetuate the existing confusion as far as security of land tenure is concerned? The major challenge with land acquisition is how much money Ghanaians lose as a result of land purchase. I think the media needs to put those issues to the appropriate parliamentary select committee. Thank you, Richard, for that message. Let's read another one. This one says, please, I would love the Lands Commission to publish all registered companies that sell land. A website should be made available to check before we deal with them. And that's Mary writing to us. Very good suggestion there. Thank you, Mary. And here's another one. It says, but here lies the case. Family members are fighting just because my daddy is not having any male heir among us. Please, can you help us with advice? Well, that's a difficult one. So we've got 3 issues here. And I think one of them is mainly a comment about this why pass a law, you know, when we haven't yet thought about how much Ghanaians lose as a result of land purchase.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I am so passionate about this because when you work with the individuals engaging in the land market in Ghana, you realize that there is so much frustration in the system. And so there was that expectation that if we were going to do a bill that will respond to the contemporary issues in the land sector, then the first thing to look at will be that 80% of the land holdings that is in the customary land authorities, so that we address the matters relating to that sector. Because you see, because they hold a larger part of the lands in Ghana, what it means is that if you and I want to acquire a parcel of land for anything, we will by all means engage with one traditional leader or another. So if that is the situation, then we need to have a legislation that will help streamline how that acquisition process is managed. Apart from that, we also need to have the legislation that supports us in how to do the documentation. Because there are many occasions where people acquire, but the documentation on what they have acquired is problematic. And it creates problems later on. Because you see, by the time the transaction gets to the Lands Commission, we would have sorted out ourselves with the traditional leaders already.
Right.
And so the Lands Commission's role is just to take the contract, register the contract according to the legal regulations that is required of them. So what happens between the time I identify the parcel, the time I engage with the traditional authority, and the time that I negotiate to get my parcel paid for and documentation done? That process, those steps are critical for securing our land rights, but those steps are not covered in the current bill, and it's a worry. So we need some actions to make sure that we have that catered for in the land bill.
So somebody asked an important question as well. Let me share that. It says simply, please, where do I register my land at the district level?
Currently, unless you are dealing with a title registration, when say we come to Greater Accra region, when the land falls within Tema district, then you have to go to Tema. If it is within Accra, you have to come to Greater Accra region for the registration.
No, but you see, it's not everyone who is in the Greater Accra region. There are, so now we have 16 regions. Okay, we used to have 10. So in each of the 10 regions, we have the 10 regional lands commission offices. So if I am in the hinterlands, say from the western region, and I am acquiring a parcel of land at Enchi, for example, what it means is that I have to travel all the way from Enchi to the regional lands commission in Sekondi. That is a challenge.
No, for the example you are giving, if you should purchase a property at Enchi, you don't have to come all the way to Sekondi Regional Lands Commission office. We have a district office at Takwa.
Okay.
What it is that we are trying to get various district offices.
Yeah.
Currently, we don't have for all the districts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are in the process of getting district offices for various areas, because I mean it is very challenging for you to purchase a property in Enchi and come all the way to Sekondi for registration. So please, if you've assuming you've purchased a property in Enchi, you have to go to Takwa. We have a district office.
That is true.
Yeah.
But what about the other regions?
Yeah.
So I gave that example just to illustrate the point that we have the Lands Commission offices in the regional capitals, and yet we have many of us transacting in the land market in the interior parts of the region, which is not close to the regional capital. And that is where we want to find out how we access the services so that we have the opportunity to protect our interest in the land. Currently, we don't have that, and that is part of the reasons why we have a challenge in securing land rights in Ghana.
Thank you for that. Now, let me quickly remind you that the WhatsApp number you're seeing on your screens is for WhatsApp. not for phone calls. So we're trying to read the WhatsApp messages. If you keep trying to ring the number, you're not really helping. Send us a WhatsApp and we will read it. So here's one. It says, good afternoon. What happens if you start a land registration process, get your yellow and green cards, and because the process is so long, your yellow card or green card gets lost along the way? Do you have to start the process all over again, or there is always a way of salvaging the losing documents, or the lost documents, forgive me, from the Lands Commission?
You see, let me take advantage and explain the meaning of a yellow card. The yellow card means it's like you've been to the hospital and you've been given a hospital card. You've not even seen the doctor. They don't know your problem at hand. So many times people start the registration. As soon as they get the yellow card, they think they've gotten somewhere and they can relax. And as I keep saying, land is a very valuable asset. And when you are dealing with it, you have to go extra mile to get whatever you are trying to achieve around it. So if you start the registration, you get a yellow card, you relax, and then later on you cannot find it. It becomes a challenge to you yourself. But the yellow card, it means that you haven't got into any part of the registration process, which you need to continue the registration. But then there's a way. Yellow card, there's a lodgement number on it. So assuming you cannot find a yellow card and you come to Lands Commission, we will be able to get you your lodgement number to prepare a new yellow card for you to continue with the registration process. Yeah.
Right.
So I think it emphasizes the point that much as we are advocating for legislation to protect individuals, to help them secure their land rights, I think the point also is that as individuals, we have a responsibility to take the necessary steps so that we benefit from the existing national mechanisms to be able to secure our interests. So it will not happen if we don't take the right actions.
Okay. Right, here's another one. It says, my wife acquired the land before we got married. Bear with me while I try to get this up. Yes, my wife acquired the land before we got married. We have developed together as a couple. What will be the future? Okay, Ato from Accra, perhaps you'll have to explain that. We're not sure what you mean by what will be the future. Yeah, so explain further. Okay, here's another one. Please, I want to know why searches on lands take such a long period of time, like months. That's a question from Mary. And I think there's someone else asking something similar. It says, please, how long should it take for one to get his search results? I went to Lands Commission in Cape Coast for research on the 23rd of August 2019, and every time I go for the results, they keep tossing me. It's been more than 2 months. Wow.
Let me explain the issue with searches at the Lands Commission. You see, searches, it depends on where you are searching. Okay, ideally, when you present your site plan and you do the presentation fee, it's supposed to take you 6 weeks to get your search report done. If after 6 weeks you are not getting your search report, all you have to do is to report to the office of the Lands Commission to find out why your search report is not out. And I must be very honest to the public that most of our records are manual. There are instances where you are looking for information, the sheet is worn out, some is off, and you cannot find the information. You have to take your time. You see, many a times people wouldn't exercise patience to get the report they are looking for. Our records are manual. Some searches, you can use a day to do a search at Lands Commission. As I kept saying, depend on where you are searching.
So I mean, what is the reason why you haven't been able to digitize your records?
We've started. So currently,
when did you start?
We've started about 4 years ago.
4 years?
Yes, 4 years ago.
To digitize records. Why is it taking so long?
Yeah, it's taking so long because we have to adopt piecemeal approach. We start from one locality to the other. You see, our record sheets, what we are trying to even computerize, they are in a very old state. You have to take your time, handle them well before you can even get it on the computer. So it's not easy. We don't allow anybody at all just to handle our record sheets. They are very delicate. Okay. So we have to take our time to get our system computerized. This document I'm talking about, some are in the 60s, ledgers. We kept flipping through these ledgers for the past decades So when you are handling such a document, you have to be very careful. We need experts to get the system computerized. So not even all staff of Lands Commission will be allowed to get the system computerized.
I get it. I want to say a big thank you to you, George, and of course to Nanama for continuing our education on lands. And of course, this is not the end of it. Stay with us. We'll be bringing you even more. Until then, though, thank you both very much for your time.
Thank you.